Hey everyone, I'm Chadwick Webb and welcome to Cinema Chad. This is a this is another review in my Marvel Cinematic Universe series. I'm basically going through all the movies, all the shows of the MCU just to kind of revisit everything and try and see if any of my views on the films have updated on rewatches or maybe a lot of them stay the same, I don't know, but I do like to but I am trying to revisit everything with an open mind just to see if there's different lenses that I can view just to see if there's just a different perspective I can apply to the film to see if it has merits on its own and try to divorce myself from a lot of the consensus that, you hear for each of the movies. I know a lot of my MCU takes are very uh different. Um But yeah, basically how this works is I'm going to talk about one of the MCU movies. I'll give it a letter grade and I'll put it in the ongoing ranking that I'm doing. Right now, we just have Iron Man at number 1 and the Incredible Hulk at number 2. So, today I'm reviewing Iron Man 2. I'm actually really excited about this one cuz this is one that is well known to be at, I feel like, most people's like bottom 5 of the MCU. A lot of people would rank this one probably last, actually. And then I wonder, why is that? Not that I think it's a particularly good movie, but what is it about this one that just doesn't live up to what the first one did? And I think what this movie does, and I basically And I think it's basically this movie just feels like a big disappointment, especially after everything that we know. The first movie is just like one of the great comic book films that launched an entire franchise, like the biggest franchise we've ever seen in film. Bink, no, 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 please no. Nope, not today. And then when we got the third one, I know that's a very divisive movie, but some people like me love it. So I'm thinking if the second Iron Man had been stronger, that maybe Iron Man would have been one of the great trilogies. And I can make that case um, maybe when I get to Iron Man 3 and talk about that one, which won't be long from now. But right now, I'm here to talk about the Iron Man 2 and why I think it's a disappointment. Really, I feel like Iron Man 2 is just trying to juggle too many things at once. It wants to be like, I think, like a few different movies. It wants to tackle the government's response to what Tony Stark is doing as Iron Man, basically saying that the suit is a weapon and that just a private citizen can't own something like this. But then you have, stuff about, like all of these different um, contracting companies that, own or manufacture so many different weapons. And, you know, why is the Iron Man suit any different? And, you know, Banks, please leave me alone for a little while. Um, I like the line in there where he says, I'm basically privatized world peace. And I would have liked them maybe to dive deeper into that. I do think they get into topics like that more successfully a little bit later when you get into films like Captain America Civil War, where they talk about private citizens like heroes. I mean, is a hero a civilian or not? And then do you make them a part of, like, the government? Like, do you make them basically government employees, and then who decides what they get to do, when or not they when or when not they should act? I don't know if that made sense the way I just said that. And so a lot of that gets really thanks, please. Not right now, buddy. Not right now. Okay? Please. I gave you a food time. Um a lot of that gets explored at length later. And I just feel like it's kind of just touched on here, and then they don't really do much to explore that. And then the other thing is kind of like, oh, well, we didn't really focus on. And then I'm wondering if, like, the up. Thanks, please. Go. Go. And then I'm wondering if the other part of it was like maybe like Tony Stark is supposed to be like, I don't know the comics that well, but I think it's something like Tony Stark is supposed to be flawed, where he's, got uh, an alcohol addiction or something like that. And I think maybe they wanted to add some sort of drama. And I think it's good that they did it to where they had it be like he's having effects from the shrapnel that's going towards his heart, and or the thing in his body is affecting him now, um, and he's dying. He's got to find a cure, but it still really doesn't even feel like they get into that until much later in the movie, where I don't feel like they are really exploring that in a very uh, efficient way. I guess I don't know. I've always thought like that was kind of cool. The part where he's trying to reconnect like with his father's legacy and trying to figure out what that means for him, but it also doesn't feel like they like began exploring that until later in the movie as well. And I like the part where he's like, "Well, I've I've tried to use like every known element," and then he creates his own element. Apparently, I don't know if that's even realistic, but I mean, look at the MCU as a whole. They go to space and all this stuff, so I don't know. There's magic, so I don't know how much is actually supposed to be realistic, but a lot of that is a lot of that is actually done pretty well when they decide to do it. But I think that's the thing, is they're just trying to juggle so much, and they don't really have like much of a through line, where it just feels like maybe focus on this one and then Iron Man 3 do a different one. I mean, I think there's a way maybe you can juggle all this stuff together, but I feel like the writing has to be sharper. You have to have someone who knows how to juggle all of that in one movie and just make it feel super cohesive. I mean, I like a lot in this movie. I like the introduction of I like a lot. I like the introduction of Black Widow. I think that's really fun during the boxing part, and she tackles Happy, and that's a really funny moment. That's another kind of flaw where you see Tony still kind of being a womanizer a little bit, and then realizes that there's something more to this woman that he's just treating as an object at first, even though even though a little bit later it feels like they even though a little bit later that feels like they do a little bit worse with the feminism of Black Widow. And then I mean we get the we get the epic scene later of her a Black Widow fighting in the hall, which is really epic. I mean, I think the Monaco sequence is pretty cool, but like, and I think the Monaco sequence in the movie is pretty cool, but like, we're gonna get into a discussion about the villain that I just don't think the villain is particularly good. And then the other thing, so here's I'll get more into the negatives here. Elon Musk has a cameo in this where it feels like now this is worse because of who Elon Musk is right now, because of who Elon Musk is now with all of the political stuff that's going down and how problematic he has turned. I mean, I guess he probably always was just being kind of like this rich guy buying up a lot of stuff, and that's just I don't want to get into the super political of it right now, but because of Elon Musk being such a politicized figure and divisive figure, someone I do not like. Seeing him in this movie where it kind of like props him up as like a Tony Stark like person actually makes me kind of sick thinking about it, because it's like Tony Stark is a hero. He's a guy that, you know, actually actually he's a guy who actually puts his money in jeopardy by not making weapons and not doing things that harm other people and then saving lives. Whereas Elon Musk is doing the complete opposite of that. So seeing him in this movie is a little bit also makes the movie kind of weird. It's a very small part, but it's kind of like Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, when you see Donald Trump pop up and you're like, oh, can we cut him out somehow? Can we use AI to cut him out somehow? Just kidding, just kidding. AI is a whole other thing, and I'm not promoting AI. That was just a joke. But yeah, Ivan Vanko, the villain. I feel like this is kind of like, I don't know, maybe it just now feels kind of standard, but I think maybe even then it kind of felt standard. Like the sins of the father now goes to the son. The son's mad at the other son because of what his father did to his father and kind of stuff. And that's not like a bad foundation for a villain to want justice and want revenge. But I feel like Ivan Vanko himself just isn't really that interesting. I think it's him. I think Vanko being kind of like a big uh Vanko being kind of like a big tough looking guy that's also really smart. I think that's actually a really cool thing to show, because a lot of the stereotype is that a big tough guy, you probably think he might be dumb because that's the stereotype. And I think showing the opposite of that, that there's like so many different people can be smart, is actually a really good message. But I just feel like they don't make the character that interesting. Like he's just not an interesting person. He's just got this like basic level uh desire or motivation, and then he carries it out and you're just never really that interested with him on screen. And mostly what they have is they make fun of his accent, um and make fun of him because he doesn't speak English that well or whatever, or he chooses not to. And instead of making that an interesting character trait, they just kind of make it a little bit of a joke. Speaking which, I love Sam Rockwell, so I love him in this movie, even though I don't know if I love how they handle the dueling, tech billionaire type contractor people. Um, I think that could have even been handled a lot better. But yeah, the villain is just really not that interesting. All the stuff they do with, give me my bird, and they just don't really make him somebody like you want to return to. It's like it adds to the idea of, it's like the start, like Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2 is the start of the MCU. The MCU never really has that great of villains until they do. Problem. And we'll get to later, like Black Panther and, Thanos and stuff where they have great villains out there. But in this one, it's not that interesting. Um, the final act fight is very underwhelming. Oh, and one big problem that I have, other than hot take, I always thought Terrence Howard should have continued being Rhodey. I don't think they should have brought Don Cheadle in. Not that I think Don Cheadle's a bad actor. I just don't like him in this role. I miss Terrence Howard from the first Iron Man, and I've always been kind of, weirded out that they just keep going with Don Cheadle. And so it's always kind of been hashtag not my roadie. I know a lot of people feel different, but that's just like one kind of take that I have. I also don't like continuity stuff where they just decide to recast someone. Luckily, they did it very early on. So Don Cheadle has just always kind of been roadie except for that first time. But it's a little bit of a thing that, I don't like. Also, another thing with Rhodey is that to me it makes no sense how when he shows up and Tony is basically, you know, and Tony is basically being very irresponsible, drunken, and just, being kind of dangerous with the Iron Man suit. Another thing that I feel like they don't really explore that well. And like what happens if, the person who is in charge of the suit doesn't handle it well. But then also, Rhodey just gets into the War Machine suit, automatically knows how to maneuver it more more so than just walking in it, but he can sit there and fight Tony Stark as Iron Man super well. And then he flies it to, the his military base, and it's like he just knows how to do all the stuff super well, really well. He just knows how to do all the stuff super well, and I feel like I don't think he had any training in this, so I just don't understand how they took that leap. So that's a pretty big issue for me. I've always like thought that just didn't make any sense, and so it's just like a lot of these issues compound into making a very not good movie. Um, However, it looks like, however, there are some good stuff, as I've mentioned in the movie. A lot of really cool action stuff. I like some of the character stuff. I like the relationship between Tony and Pepper. That's always great. I love seeing Pepper getting the title of CEO. That's really cool. It means so much to her. And just the building of those relationships is what makes the MCU so nice, is that throughout the all the movies you get all of these long running relationships, and it feels kind of like a big TV series. It's what I've always loved about TV is you can take characters and build on them through seasons, and I feel like that, you know, and I feel like that makes the characters stronger, the relationships between them stronger, and the relationships between them and the audience a lot stronger. So, there's a lot of great character stuff in this that I think was missing from The Incredible Hulk. If you haven't seen that review, go check that out. And so now, I feel like I'm at the end of reviewing this. I feel like there's not much else that I can touch on. I feel like it has some strengths, but overall the weaknesses just pile up. The villain is not that great. I feel like it just doesn't know really what it wants to do. It's very unfocused in what it wants to do, and I feel like just a few things don't make sense, and it's just really not that streamlined. And I wish it was, because if it was, I think this could be one of the best trilogies. Yet Iron Man 2 is always one of those big speed bumps in the trilogy. Like, I don't even know if I want to rewatch Iron Man 2, to be honest, because you get some cool stuff, but you get a lot of bullshit too. However, in assigning a letter grade to this, I can't give it a D because I've already given The Incredible Hulk a D. And I think this is better than The Incredible Hulk. I think this actually has some relationships that I like, that, have emotional stakes to them. I feel like this has some really good action in it, whereas I don't feel like The Incredible Hulk did. And the only reason I'm comparing is because I'm actually ranking these and I'm assigning letter grades. So I don't want to give the Incredible or I don't want to give Iron Man 2 a lower grade than the Incredible Hulk. So I'm going to give Iron Man 2 a C minus. So I think it's just a step above the Incredible Hulk because I actually find Iron Man 2 a little bit interesting, even though I don't really love watching it all that much. But there are certain moments that give me a smile and stuff. So, and I like the introduction of Black Widow and things like that. So I think Iron Man 2 is not good, but there's parts that I like, basically. So I'm gonna obviously put this at number 2, Iron Man number 1, Iron Man 2 number 2, and the Incredible Hulk number 3. And yeah, so thank you guys for checking out another review in my MCU series. I'm gonna do Captain America: The First Avenger next. Very looking forward to that because it's another. We'll get into it, but I'm excited to keep going. Uh, Let me know what you guys think about Iron Man 2 in the comments. Do you disagree with me? Do you agree with me? Do you think I've been too kind to it or a little bit too mean to it? I don't know. The MCU is very divisive sometimes, and it's really fun to hear other people's opinions on things. But yeah, go ahead and check out the rest of the channel. I have some other reviews. I'm trying to get more reviews out, and then also check out You Ranking with Me, the series I do with my buddy James, my wife Carrie, and a lot of other friends. We just rank stuff. We rank franchises, directors, just a lot of different things. We even did a Taylor Swift album ranking at one point. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, please check out all that stuff. Make sure you give a like to this video, please, if you've enjoyed it, and then also subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel, please. I really want to try to get more subscribers, get this to more eyes, and that'll keep me going so that I can, feel that'll keep me going. That'll help support the channel and keep me going. But I'm very excited to get to the rest of the movies. And yeah, thank you for watching. Have a good day.